We have been specifically talking about the divine feminine. Now, for today's podcast, we are trying to, talk about the divine feminine, which is the fiercest form of the divine feminine, Maa Kali. And if you look at the overall form that, how she manifests herself, it's a very, intimidating form for anyone and everyone.
But why has Maa Kali become so popular? It's not just here in India. You look at the West, Kali stands for the emancipation of women. She is the poster child of women's liberation. The logo of the Rolling Stones with the tongue out, that is with respect to Kali. They have taken that iconography from Kali. Mainly, we see her in two variations. One, we see her in the black form, in which she has 10 arms. And then we have her in the blue form, in which she is seen only with 4 arms.
So, where can one begin with Maa Kali's practices, upasana?
It is best to do it under a guru. Because when you're talking of these very fierce energies, you may not be in a position to control them once you have evoked or aroused those energies. And particularly with Maa Kali, because it is closely associated with the Kundalini Shakti.
So here we are for the third time, and it's really again, I would say it again, it's really an honor and a pleasure for me to host you again on the show. If you remember in our last podcast, we did a section on the Q&As, all the questions that we had from most of the questions that we had from our guests, from our audience. We created a section for that as well, and people shared their feedback that found it really interesting and really a good concept that we actually went ahead and took up those questions and answered those. So thank you so much again for that. Ma'am, where do we start? So lately, that I stay in Chandigarh, right? So last 2 years, particularly me, I always plan to go to Mansa Devi temple out here, which is one of the really powerful Mata temples that you'll find in the country. But they say till the Devi wants you to be, wants you visit her home, you cannot do that. And trust me, in the last 1 week, I have been to Mansa Devi temple twice. So such is the calling of Ma. I mean, when she calls, you just happen to be there, right? And so I have been watching a lot of podcasts, around the Shakt, the Shakt part of it, on Devi Puja and everything. So there is a very interesting fact that we found. Even I think we spoke about it in the last couple of podcasts. That recently we are seeing a surge in the Bhairav Sadhana, particularly in India. So I was listening to this gentleman called Rajashi Nandi. So he mentioned that whenever Bhairav Sadhana will go, will increase, it will lead to increase in the Devi Sadhana as well. Because till the time Bhairav allows you, you have to first invoke the Bhairav Tattva, then you can obviously reach closer to the Devi Tattva. So I found it really interesting because if you see, I mean, everywhere wherever there is a, Shakti Pit, there is a Bhairav out there. So what, do you have any thoughts around that?
I would just like to add to what Rajashi Nandi ji said, that whenever Bhairav Sadhana becomes increased, more people are drawn towards Shakti Sadhana as well, because one cannot exist without the other. And in the same way, whenever Shakti grows, whenever people are drawn towards the practice of Ma in any form, we will also see that there is a concurrent rise in Bhairav Sadhana, in Shiva Sadhana. And I see this in my own example because I used to deliberately stay away from all the Shiva mantras, particularly the Rudram, because I was very afraid of them, because I would feel my energy, my temperature go up, and it was always something that I was fearful of. But a time came when, with my Shakti Sadhana, with Lalita and with Sri Vidya, it became incumbent upon me to do the Shiva work as well. So right now, I am concurrently practicing both, because I realize you can't have one without the other. It's Prakasha and Vimarsha, and the light and the mirror. And if you have to look at it in another way, it's that if there is pure consciousness, there needs to be the energy that suffuses it. So pure consciousness is nothing without the energy. And the energy, unless it finds something to latch on to, like electricity is everywhere, but it's only when it finds a light bulb or a refrigerator that it can actually do something with it. So in the same way, these two aspects have to come together in order for creation itself. So we shouldn't limit ourselves. Many people are very afraid that if they're on Bhairav Sadhana, if they start doing any kind of Shakti sadhana, it makes them effeminate, or it reduces the potency of the Shiva sadhana. Actually, it has the opposite effect. It becomes even more strong. The sadhana then gathers a momentum which you cannot even fathom.
So now, if you look at a typical Indian household, right? We are conditioned, we are brought up in a manner where I mean, in our daily lives, we are, we are conditioned to worship multiple deities at one point of time. I mean, every single day, right? It's not like that a household hold will only, do Krishna puja or anything like. If it's a daily, your daily worship thing, you are worshipping all the deities that you have, all the pictures or the idols that you have in your temple. Does it also stem from the fact that you cannot have what you mentioned, that you cannot, have one without the other? And they, as they say, that Shiv without Shakti is Shav, right? And same goes with, Devi Puja as well. I mean, to get closer to her, you have to, invoke the Bhairav Tattva in yourself. So does it also stem from the same fact?
We have to understand here that there is the Vedic method and then there is the Tantric method.
Right.
In the time of the Vedas, we didn't have this number of deities. There were a few: Indra, Varuna, and Agni. There were no murtis in that time. So we didn't have the Nama Rupa form, because perhaps at that time it was in another yuga where people were much more intelligent and attuned to the spirit, to the astral world, to what lies beyond just this material universe that we are seeing. But in Kali Yuga, what has happened is we are not able to understand the abstractions. So we pick something with a name and a form. So if you look at all the gods and goddesses, all the deities, they are all but a reflection of that same consciousness, that universal intelligence, which we call God. And every religion says this. This is not only about Sanatana. Every religion understands and adheres to this belief that there is one truth, and all of these paths, whether it be Hanuman or Lord Rama or Lord Krishna, Shiva, Shakti, they all lead to the same truth, the same reality. It's just that these are all methods, these are all tools which take us to that universal intelligence. So, in a way, I would liken this analogy to having a doctor who is a general physician, and then in Sanatana, we have all these specialist doctors who are different deities. So if you want Vignaharta, you go to Ganapati. If you want the ultimate consciousness, then you go towards Shiva. If you want a motherly love, you go towards Shakti. If you want to acquire property, you go towards Varahi. If you want to win court cases, you go towards Baglamukhi, and so on and so forth. So just like all the specialist doctors play a role, these specialist deities have their own magnetism. They have their own reason for existing. But we should never take our eyes off the sight of the vision that they're all the same. It's the Nirguna Brahma. So
Absolutely.
what we are looking for is the Nama Rupa, which is the Saguna
Yeah.
Brahma.
So for specifically for today's podcast, we have been talking about Lalita Sahasranam. We have been talking so much about, in the last two episodes that we have done, Ma Lalita Tripura Sundari. So we have been specifically talking about the divine feminine. Now for today's podcast, we are trying to, talk about the divine feminine, which is the fiercest form of the divine feminine, Ma Kali, right?
Yeah.
But before going there, let's start. Uh, it would be my suggestion that we should start probably from the ultimate source of everything, which is the Adya Shakti, be it Brahma, Vishnu, Mahesh, whatever. I mean, whatever deities or whatever energies that we bow down to, everything stems from Adya Shakti. So
Yeah.
let's just talk about Adya Shakti a bit more, and then
We are
we gradually go into it.
we are acknowledging that Aadya Shakti in itself is feminine,
Yeah.
first of all. And from there stems everything. And we can actually understand this better when we look at the three realms that exist. So, at the very material realm in which you and I exist, where it's only everything around us, the physical universe, which is called Adi Bhautika, we move into a slightly more spiritual realm, which is Adhyatmika. And
Okay.
once we move through these two realms, we reach what is Adi Daivika. Right? So all these three together come as one in Adya Shakti. And it is also that the same thing of Ichha, Kriya, and Shakti itself coming together. So there's Jnana, Ichha, and Kriya. So these are all components of what we call as Adya Shakti. And predominant among this Adya Shakti, and particularly in the Adi Daivika method, where we are reaching over and above this realm, is Mahakali. She is number one. She is numero uno amongst all the deities. For the
Okay.
simple reason that she is the purest, sincerest manifestation of Adya Shakti. And from her, everything else comes into play.
Okay. So before we move ahead, I would just share with you that in my paternal home, since my childhood, I have seen that. So I'm from a Bengali family, right? So if you look at, every deity, uh, for some other reason which I still have not understood, there is a geographical preference of the deity. I don't know how should I put it, but if you look at it towards the eastern side, it's more Shakt Pradhan. It's more towards the Devi Puja, be it Kamakhya in Assam, be it Ma Tara, Ma Kali towards the Bengal
Yeah.
part of it. Even so, I am born and brought up in Jharkhand. So in Jharkhand, near to Ranchi, we have one of the fiercest form of Ma Kali, Ma Chinnamastika. We have a dedicated temple of Ma Chinnamastika, which
Yes.
is a very powerful temple, very very powerful temple. Then again in Bengal we have Tarapet. We have in Birbhum district we have Ma Kali's temple. So now coming back to the fact that since my childhood I have seen that on Diwali, on the night of Diwali, we used to have Kali Puja at our home with proper Ma Kali's idol, with that where she is stepping onto Shiva with her tongue out and everything. So we used to have that, and it has always fascinated me. As a child, when something is going on around in your home, when everyone comes in, you are just excited about it. So that was the kind of excitement that I had. But gradually I understood the power of that one night. you know I was, I shared with you that this spirituality, this religion bug started in me maybe 1.5 years back. Before that, I was not too, ignorant teen, I would again put it that way. But that one night of Kali Puja, whenever I used to have that in our home, there was just another level of excitement, devotion, however you put it, in that little kid. So I have always seen that, and so Maa Kali has always intrigued me. And if you look at the overall form that you know how she manifests herself, it's a very intimidating form for anyone and everyone.
True.
So could you please talk about that form a bit?
Maa Kali is perhaps the most unusual, perhaps the most feral, most fearsome deity to ever exist on this planet. You look at all religions, but why has Maa Kali become so popular? It's not just here in India. You look at the West, Kali stands for the emancipation of women. She is the poster child of women's liberation.
Yeah.
Music, the logo of the Rolling Stones with the tongue out, that is with respect to Kali. They have taken that iconography from Kali. Her iconography is extremely unusual.
Yeah.
Let's just explore. Firstly, let's see that there are two versions of Kali that we typically see. Of course, there are many local versions, but mainly we see her in two variations. One, we see her in the black form.
Yes, yes.
Okay, in which she has 10 arms. And then we have her in the blue form, in which she is seen only with 4 arms. So the black arm Kali is the one which is probably more fierce.
Okay.
Because, first of all, let us just visualize her form. She's black. Her features are really fearsome. She has her tongue out. Her hair is all over the place. She's naked to show her feral side, her wild side. She wears a string of skulls around her neck. She's bare chested, which points out to the fact that she is, at the end of the day, a mother, like what Ramakrishna used to say. That when you address her as mother and you call her Ma, she will lose all of that ferocity and come to you as a mother. That nakedness of the upper body is to depict that motherhood, that nature of the mother in her. Then you go further down, you will see that she is typically shown wearing a skirt, either made of tiger skin or made up of human arms. And then you go further and you see that there are serpents around her ankle. I will explain the significance of all of this. And then she is in a pose on top of Shiva, who's reclining.
Right.
And there is a difference in whether that pose is Alidha or Pratyalidha. Whether it is the right leg in front or whether it is the left leg in front.
Okay.
So all of these also add up to her iconography. Now let us start with the fact that she wears this garland of skulls. Sometimes in the more fierce descriptions, it is shown as being the garland of skulls of small children, because she treats all her devotees like her small children. And there are typically 51 skulls, which represents the 51 syllables, the 51 alphabets of the Sanskrit language. Okay. Which means that everything started with her, including Vak. Because without the syllables, without the alphabets, you don't have language. So language also started with her. And then you come to the fact that her hair is all over, which means she is just wild. She is not restricted by any social norms. The arms which she wears as a skirt also point to the fact that she takes on the karma, because the hands are karmendriyas. So she wears the karma of all of her devotees loosely around her waist. The serpents which are around her ankle, they represent the Kundalini Shakti. Okay. And we didn't speak about the tongue, which is out all the time, right? It is dripping blood. Now, The two things very important to understand here. Many people, especially in the Bengali tradition, believe that this is out of lajja, this is out of embarrassment or
Yeah,
shame.
yeah.
Actually, if you look at the tantric texts, that is not at all true. Because for a goddess as fierce as Kali, there is no embarrassment, there is no shame. Her tongue is out because, number one, she has licked away all the evil from the world. You can understand it that way.
Okay.
Like when we see the story of Rakta Bija, she has to lick away all his blood in order for him to perish.
Yeah.
Tantric way of understanding it is also that it is a method of pranayama. When you put your tongue out, it's a mudra. That's also one way of understanding it.
Okay.
So I think we have to move away from this interpretation that it is out of lajja or embarrassment that her tongue is out.
Yeah, I mean, whenever we have, seen that particular idol or that form where, she has stepped onto Shiva, we have been told that when she did that, she realized, before that she had completely gone mad, she was fierce and everything during the battle. Now when Shiva, and I think you will also see this in any of the, Hindu religious series, web series that you see, be it any other, serials that we'll see. It has always been explained that when Shiva comes and lays in front of her, and she accidentally steps onto Shiva, she realizes that what have I done? I have stepped onto my own husband.
She does not accidentally step onto Shiva.
Okay.
It is a very deliberate move to show that she is Aadya Shakti. Because again, in Lalita also, you see that she is called Pancha Pretasanasina because she's sitting on the corpses of Brahma, Vishnu, Maheshwara, Sadashiva. So there, how will you describe it? Here, of course, you can say that she just accidentally stepped on him. But then how do you describe the fact that Lalita is sitting on the corpses of all these most important gods? So that's why Tantra says the correct explanation is to believe that it is a form of pranayama. It's a mudra that she's practicing. And her tongue is out mainly because she has to lick away all the evil. And there is also one more interpretation in Tantra that she takes all the rituals that we give her by licking. That's her way of assimilating all of the rituals that her devotees offer her. And one more very interesting fact, which many people may not have noticed, is that her earrings are embryos.
Oh.
Which also points to the fact that there is a mothering nature in her. So this is broadly the iconography of Kali, which we are used to. So the black color is because she has taken in all the darkness, all the evil, and she has held on to it so that the world may have brightness, the world may have light.
And what about the blue color iconography?
That is a slightly less fierce version. Almost a little more calmer, because if you see typically in the blue color iconography, she is not holding the severed head and she's not holding that bloody sword. So she is seen in the Abhaya and Varada mudra. So perhaps that is a later day variation, and we see this across religious iconography, that it changes from time to time. So the one which is the most fierce version of Mahakali is the black one, which shows her with all of these aspects which we just discussed.
Does Maa Kali have any other, form where she manifests? Does she manifest in other different forms?
Chamundi.
Okay.
Dakshina Kali, which I think you're familiar with as a Bengali, because Bhadra Kali. There are several manifestations. So even if you just look at the Devi Mahatmya, In the first chapter of Devi Mahatmya, we see her as Mahakali, where she's fighting Madhu Kaithava. Then in the following chapters, we see her as fighting Chandamunda, right? So that's when she becomes Chamundi. When she fights Rakta Bija, then she takes on another role. So each of these has a different manifestation, but they're all emanating from the same source. Like it is said, with Kali also, there are many stories as to how she came about. One story is that the Asuras who attacked Kaushiki becomes so angry that she turns black, and from her forehead, Kali comes out. That is one story. The other story is that she came out of Vishnu. When Vishnu was fast asleep, she came out as goddess Yoga Nidra to wake up Brahma and to save the universe. So there are various stories. We can't say one is the right one, the other one may not be valid, because all of these, again, are merely narratives which we have built in order to convey the message and to give us a feeling of what this fierce entity is all about.
There is one more, probably a bit, how do I put it? Maybe a softer version of Kali, which is Ma Tara. Then again, when in the Bengal side, Ma Tara is also, you will find many.
Tara also.
Yeah. So single deity one form of Ma Devi, which is Kali. Now several forms, emanating or originating from that one source. Is that again what we have been telling time and again, that the energy is one? We manifest it, we name it, how we feel. How the scriptures have been written or how we relate to it, so that we can relate to that.
Ma Tara is the second of the Dasha Mahavidyas. Kali is the first one.
Right.
So all of them, all the Dasha Mahavidyas are but emanations of Kali herself. So Tara, you can see her in an Ugra form. You can see her in Vajrayana Buddhism as the predominant goddess. You see Kali's reflections everywhere across religion. You'll be very surprised. I used to regularly visit an island called Reunion Island, which is French territory near Mauritius. And one day, someone took me to a temple, a church actually, where there is a saint of the Christian nature, Saint Expedited. And he is said to be influenced by Kali, which was very surprising for me. But it was that she makes her presence felt everywhere. So for me to discover Ma Kali on a remote island of Reunion was very surprising. But that's how we acknowledge that she is everywhere.
And
also that the word divine in the English language comes from Devi.
Wow.
Shows us that we are really on to something here. It's not just a fly-by-night thing that we are discussing.
Wow. So now, before we speak more about, the Tantra practices related to Ma Kali, let's again go back to, the Bhairava discussion that we're having at the beginning of this podcast. Now, Bhairava, typically Mahakal or Kal Bhairav is again depicted as a Rudra form of Shiva. Ma Kali is a Rudra form of the Devi or the Shakti. So almost two similar nature deities, right? Now, when you're trying to, when you're trying to become a Devi Upasak, right? So, specifically talking about Ma Kali today. So, do you also have to go through this Kal Bhairav route, or do you have to also do the Kal Bhairav Sadhana? Because you also mentioned that you were deliberately ignoring it because of XYZ reasons, but at the end of the day, you had to also come around that. Like if you are doing Devi Sadhana, you'll have to come to Bhairav Sadhana as well.
It may not need to be Kala Bhairav or Batuk Bhairav. It could be at a more higher level, which could be that you chant the mantras which are a little more advanced. But essentially, you have to tune into the Shiva Shakti. It's that when I say Shakti in that sense, it means the energy, the tattva of Shiva. It's very important because if you don't do that, the Purna nature of your experience is not going to be complete.
Okay.
So it is important. If you're doing Shiva practice, necessary to include some kind of Devi Sadhana and vice versa. Otherwise, your practice will be incomplete. And that is what the whole point of all the Tantra texts are. That when we talk of Shiva Shakti Eka Rupini, when we understand that Shiva and Shakti have become one, is when we almost reach a point of Nirvikalpa Samadhi, that we are alive, yet we have attained moksha in this lifetime. When we arrive at this truth, that there is no difference between Shiva and Shakti, they are but one. But it is our illusion, it is our ignorance, it is our lack of knowledge which makes us see all the things as distinct, which leads us to Advaita, which is the non-duality of everything, including Shiva and Shakti.
Is there a safe mantra of Bhairav that everyone can, probably start off with? Why am I saying safe? Because just hearing one podcast or maybe looking at one reel, one should not start a practice that they are not attuned to and they are not accustomed to without a proper guidance.
True.
Right? Because things can have repercussion if not done in the right manner. And what we see in this generation today, that people take off anything and everything just because just because they believe it's a fad or it's a fashion to do this or do that. But it's not always that way when it comes to particular deities, when it comes to particular energies which are so powerful.
Correct.
Right.
A very
So
safe
that's what
very safe Shiva mantra, which is a prasiddha mantra, because it also starts with the pranava, is the Panchakshari. Right?
Okay.
So the Panchakshari is Namah Shivaya, but if you add Om to that, Om Namah Shivaya is a very safe mantra which can be practiced by anyone. Without any fear of any kind of the repercussions that you were talking about. It does not need any Purascharana. It does not need initiation by a guru. None of that is required. You can chant it safely.
So where can one begin with Maa Kali's practices, upasana?
Maa Kali, if you want to do, it is best to do it under a guru. Because when you're talking of these very fierce energies, you may not be in a position to control them once you have evoked or aroused those energies. And particularly with Maa Kali, because it is closely associated with the Kundalini Shakti.
Right.
It is better that you do it with someone, under someone's guidance who knows more about this. Many people say that you can start with Om Krim Kalikaye Namaha, because any mantra which ends with Namaha is also said to be Prasiddha. But again, many people say Cream, many people say Clean. So one never knows, and you have to determine what lineage, what actually the outcome is that you want. And only then decide which mantra to chant. So I would be very cautious when I do Kali or Tara or Chinnamasta or any of these more Ugra goddesses, safer thing to do is to go with the Saumya goddesses like Lalita, which is why Sri Vidya is so popular. Because somewhere you understand that the repercussions may not be so intense.
Okay. I think you hit the nail when you say that one should weigh the outcome, what exactly that you are looking forward to. But when we say that, now on one hand, when we go to a temple, right? Uh, Generally we are there to ask for something whenever we are in some dire need of something. It could be anything.
True.
Right. But then again, on one hand, we have said that when you are going to a temple or when you are, you should always pay your gratitude to the deities rather than always asking for it. And one hand, we are saying that when you're starting a particular line of upasana, you should always weigh the outcome. So when you say that you should always weigh the outcome, what do you mean by that? I mean, is it expectation of the outcome that we're looking at, or what exactly it is?
When you start any sadhana, you start by setting a sankalpa.
Okay.
That sankalpa means you have set an intention. It could be material or it could be spiritual.
Okay.
It doesn't matter. It is not wrong in our path in Tantra to have material desires and to seek material outcomes. Because the Tantric texts say very clearly that a person who earns wealth in the dharmic fashion is always going to be beneficial to society at large.
Right, right.
So if you want something and you ask for it in your sankalpa, it is perfectly valid, it is perfectly legitimate, there has to be no guilt about it. Now, there are some people who might not want the material things, they already have enough of that. They're looking at something which is beyond that, which is about spiritual evolution. So they set their intention accordingly, that I want a darshan of Ma, or I want you to show me some synchronicity. I want you to show me that our connection exists, and so on and so forth. So that is what I mean when I say that you have to set an intention, that sankalpa is a necessary step in sadhana.
Okay.
It's not that you judge the outcome, but it is not wrong to say this is what I am seeking.
Saying that material things are important, it's also important because if someone, if you're not in the position wherein you can have a roof over your family's head or food on your children's plate, it makes no sense for you to get into religious practices because you don't have your basics right. And then again, if you don't have the basics right, you will not be in the right mindset to do right things. It can then go into the wrong practices.
Exactly.
And the second thing is that when you have achieved everything, then it's time for you to give back. Then when you can say that, okay, now I'm ready to give a bit back to the society, now that you have achieved something. Yeah, I can absolutely understand that, because I was hearing someone's interview. I think it was Om Swami or someone. They were also saying that if you don't have enough, I mean, if you're not earning enough, if you cannot put food in your family's plate and things like that, don't look at religious practice. It's not for you. I mean, no discussion. It's not for you. Yes. Then first take care of the basics. Once that is covered, once you are absolutely sure, okay, now whatever I do, I can, then you'll be in the right mindset to do all these practices, all your sadhana, then will be in the right direction.
That is a matter of karma, Ronikji. The fact that for everyone who has a spiritual practice, it is because they have a prarabdha which allows them, gives them all the material needs which are covered so that they can do a spiritual sadhana. For someone who does not have that, it just means that karmically they're not ready for any kind of spiritual evolution. Now, there are some cases where one is born in a very poor family, yet is able to get away from it all and become a sannyasi or become a very well-known spiritual leader. That again is a choice that he has made in his soul contract in order to come into being purely with the purpose of becoming this spiritual agent.
Right.
So that then does not work against him. But we are not talking about that 1 in a million case. We are talking generally about people who, if they are a daily wage laborer, who, if they have to do manual work, they come back home, all they want to do is just eat a good meal and go to sleep so that they can get back and do the same thing again tomorrow. Whereas once the material needs are fulfilled, that's when you start seeking meaning and purpose and what am I here for? And all those questions start to arise, the philosophical questions of life.
Right. Uh, does it also relate to the fact, I mean, what path one chooses, the whether it's the Sri Vidya path, or it's the Devi Sadhana in terms of Maa Kali Sadhana, or Bhairav Sadhana, whatever path one chooses. Uh, is it also somewhere related to the fact, I mean, let's take an example. If I want to choose a particular line of sadhana, does it have something to do with what my past life karmas were, what is my karmic debt, the family that I have been born into, my lineage, my if there is, obviously I'll have to have a guru who will guide me, my guru's lineage. Uh, does all these factors combine to push you to the right direction?
Absolutely. There is no question at all about that. Because there are, like I always say, three kinds of devatas that we look at in our everyday lives. First, we have the Kula Devata. So you're
Right.
born into a certain family already with a ready-made deity to whom you have to give your allegiance. The second is where you're born, because that determines who your Grama Devata is.
Okay.
And these two, you don't have any control over determining who
Yes.
these
Yes.
two are, because you're just born into the circumstances, which is karmic in that sense. There is no free will here. And the only time free will comes into play is when you decide your Ishta Devata. But there again, it is your nurture, it is your nature, it is all the experiences that you have had which pushes you in the direction of a specific Ishta Devata. So, to cut a long story short, yes, this is karmic. This is something to do with what you had decided even before you took birth. That you want to be a Ganesha worshipper, or you want to be a Shiva sadhaka, or you want to be a Shakti sadhaka is already predetermined. But you can also change tracks. And there has to be no guilt about that. Many people fear that there might be some kind of vengeance that the gods will wreak. The gods have much more things to do than to wreak vengeance on one person who's moving away from them onto another god or goddess. That's nonsense. And that's just fear mongering by some classes who just want to hold on to people at any cost. But you can see, the thing is, I think everyone should internalize this. Your mind is always eavesdropping on your thoughts. Let's take this one example. So there's this delicious piece of mithai in front of you. And you're looking at it and you're thinking, you know what? I want to eat this. But if I eat this, it's going to make me fat, but I'm still going to eat it. There's already a guilt. And your mind has overheard you say, this is going to make me fat. This is not good for me. And you consume this. Obviously, it's going to make you fat because your mind thinks that you have given it an instruction. Now, the same thing, you change the narrative and you say, this is my prasad from Ma today. It's going to be good for me. It's going to nourish my every cell. And you consume it.
Okay.
Because everything that you think is a self-fulfilling prophecy. I use the analogy of food because that's the most common thing. But if you apply it to anything in life, you will see that what you are thinking is what eventually happens. So in a way, it's all your own prophecy. So
Okay.
if you think that, okay, until yesterday I was a Shiva sadhak, today Ma is calling me, but Shiva is going to do something terrible to me. And you have that in your mind and you go into your everyday work and something goes wrong because it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. Whereas if you say that the gods, they have too much energy to be bothered about something like this, nothing bad will happen, then nothing bad will happen. If you say
Absolutely.
miracles will happen, then you will make sure that you are the creator of those miracles.
Okay. Let's talk a bit about Ma Kali's Tantra practices. So what I have heard, because I don't have any first-hand experience about it, it's a fierce sadhana, and people tend to, get intimidated because once he starts to manifest, it becomes a lot for anyone to, stick to that energy and hold on to that energy, and people tend to get away from it because of these reasons, because they cannot take that so much of, because it's a fiercest form. So how one should start with Ma Kali's Tantra, Ma Kali's Sadhana, and how one should go about it in a very step by step manner?
Again, here it is the guru who can determine for you what, because see, in today's world, we are not able to do the things which were asked of us in the Tantra texts. We can't do the Smashana rituals. We can't do the Panchamakara rituals. We can't do many of the things which are outlined there simply because that was in a different time, that was in a different circumstance. Today, what we can do is to find a very Dakshinachara path, which means the right-handed path, which is using her yantra, Kali yantra. It's a very simple drawing. You can either draw it or you can visualize it, you can meditate upon it. Use the Kali mantras, whichever appeals to you. And even in that, there are two ways. One is the Bija mantra, which will only be short mantras, short syllables put together, strung together, like Om, Kleem, Kalikaye, Namaha. Or you do the longer Sahasranamas or the Ashtotrams or the Suktams or whichever applies to Kali. So, for example, even something like an Aigri Nandini or all of those, the bhajans and the kirtans that you hear, they're all equally good and they don't have the efficacy of the Bija mantra. So perhaps that's a good starting point. You start getting attuned to her energies. You start feeling her in all the chakras. The Kundalini Shakti starts to stir. And then perhaps you can start doing the Bija mantras, which then affirms your practice and you become closely connected with her. After which you will not fear the fierceness with which she comes.
Okay.
So yantra, mantra, mudra, Kundalini Shakti. It's the same four things that you use for any other practice. But here it is focused upon Kali as your Ishtadev.
Okay. So be it Ma Kamakhya, be it Ma Lalita Tripur Sundari, be it Ma Kali. So any sadhana that you do, basics are almost the same.
Yes.
Basics is the energy that's different, is a form that is different, and accordingly, maybe according to my nature, my core nature, I will somehow be directed in that direction, that this is your direction to take, and that's a guru's job again, as you mentioned.
And also to remember that it's how these are all tools, like we discussed. So the tool does its job. It's how you utilize it.
Right.
A knife is a tool. You could use it to take someone's life. A surgeon will use it to give someone life. So in the same way, especially with Kali Sadhana, there are some Vamachara paths which can bring about a lot of negative things. Like we can talk about Stambhana, we can talk about Vashikaran, we can talk about even where you can effectively kill a person. But we are not doing all of that in our practice when we follow the Dakshinachara Marga. But there are people who are doing that as well. And this is something we should never lose sight of. That's why Tantra was always so hidden. Because if it is positive and it is powerful in its positivity, then you can be sure that it will have the same power in its negativity.
Okay. So maybe we'll obviously keep this podcast short because we are trying to talk about Tara Maa Kali. But I have a question. I mean, now you know that I worship Shiva. I worship, and I'm a very devoted of devotee of Lord Hanuman. Right. So these two things are in my daily routine. Now, should I leave it to the deities that I am surrendering to my, I mean, be it Lord Hanuman or Shivji, to guide me in the coming years in my the next half of my life? Which sadhana path should I take, or which spiritual path should I take? I mean, if see, Hanumanji is something which, as Indians, we tend to get fascinated by Hanumanji because of the overall form, because of the stories, because of everything else, and because of Hanuman Chalisa specifically. Because I think it's one of those Chalisas which almost every Indian, at least in the Hindu household, remembers by heart,
True.
right? And so if we tend to get really attracted to Hanumanji. But will Hanumanji guide me in my coming years that, okay, this is the path for you?
How I see it, Ronik ji, is Hanuman is wonderful to offer you a kavach, to give you protection. He is there to offer that.
Right.
He might not help you evolve on your spiritual path, which is why you need the Shiva Sadhana to help you move from one realm to the other in the spiritual growth. So eventually what will happen is that one or the other, typically what happens is that you start feeling the same protection that you're getting from Hanuman, you are receiving from the Shiva Sadhana. And then you will move away into the practice of Shiva becoming deeper and deeper. And it will happen very seamlessly when one day you will suddenly wake up and realize that there is no longer a place for the Hanuman worship. And there will be no side effects. There will be no ill effects. You can be sure of that. And that will happen. And you will seamlessly start to just focus upon one thing, upon one image, one idol, one practice. And a time will come when even that will shed. Then you don't need yantra, you don't need mantra, you don't need mudra, you don't need anything. When you have become one with the deity and you can drop all the practices. And that is why it is said, Antarmukha Samaradhya Bahirmukha Sudurlabha. How much ever you do on the outside as rituals, as chanting, as homas, as yajnas, eventually what really brings you close to the God is that internal connection that you make with the Supreme Being.
Absolutely. I mean, I cannot, agree with you more regarding that protection thing about Hanumanji that you mentioned. In the past few months, I have felt it very closely, that there is something or the other, which is trying to protect me, which is not trying to, which is protecting me in maybe the spiritual world or in the, real world. There are a few things that I've come across, but I have got out of, obviously the deities, what I understand, it's my understanding that when you are maybe, uh, have surrendered yourself to your deity, or to a certain line of sadhana, they will put you through some really shit times, pardon my language, but really shit times and really tough times. And that's when you need to, show show your gratitude more, and just surrender yourself that it's your wish, you guide me, you have thrown me into this dish, you will take me out. I have complete faith in you.
Complete Sharanagati. The important thing is to be diligent and sincere in your sadhana, be it to one deity or two. Because eventually, even if it is multiple deities, if there is some people who are doing 5 or 6 deities, eventually, if they are diligent enough and if they're not doing it mechanically, but they're doing it with some degree of engagement, one or two will fall away. And then slowly, slowly, it will get so refined that they will realize in their moments of great joy or great pain, there is only one that you will reach out to. And that one is the one who will take you to moksha.
Okay. Thank you so much, Vinita ji. Every time I speak to you, it's really a exciting discussion for me, because I get to learn a lot, and through this podcast, the audience learns a lot. And every time there is one learning that comes out. Whatever you do it with dedication, and you don't have when you're doing something, do it with utmost dedication, obviously, and surrender yourself. So that's the most important thing that one should always understand. It's not a fashion, it's not a fad. So stay away from all those things. So if someone says in a certain podcast or something that Bhairava, 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 because everyone is talking about Bhairava these days, right? So it might not be the path for you.
But I would like to differ a little bit from you, Ronik ji, that even if you start it as a fad or as a fashion or it's a flavor of the month, at least the fact that it is getting people onto the path is something that we have to be very grateful for, because then once they taste the nectar of spirituality, once they get a feeling of that bliss consciousness, then there is no stopping them. They will search, they will find, they will involve themselves in a greater sadhana. So for me, if people are pursuing it like a fashion, it's perfectly acceptable. And even if it is in a way in which, if the Sri Yantra is only seen from a point of view as a work of art, for me it's still acceptable, because when the person keeps looking at the Sri Yantra, it will raise his consciousness without him even knowing it.
Absolutely. It's like that if you're getting up early in the morning because someone has said, some influencer has said it, and you step out to the sun to look at it, whether or not you're doing it, with all your heart, or what, you are getting the vitamin D, you are getting the benefits of the early sun.
Absolutely. And in a way, in the spiritual world, this is a much needed thing, because all these years, even as I was growing up, we didn't have any spiritual role models to look up to.
Yes.
But now, of course, it's a double-edged sword, because there is so much information out there that you don't know what is knowledge and what is information. It's very difficult to discern between the two. So you're exposed to so much, which you may not be in a position to determine whether it's right or wrong, and unless you find a good guru who will guide you on the path. But having said that, perhaps if we get on the path, then the guru will emerge.
Absolutely. Thank you, Vinita ji. With this, we end this podcast, but we don't end the conversation. The conversations will keep on happening. Thank you so much. And nothing much to say. We have said, so many things to you. But again, we look forward to hosting you again on the show. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ronik ji. I truly appreciate the opportunity that you present me with from time to time to spread the knowledge of Shakti. And may she bless you, and may she bless all the listeners who are tuning into this with an abundance of all things enriching. Find bliss, find peace, find joy.
Thank you so much. Shri Matre Rama. Thank you.